I've got a very interesting clarinet in front of me here, and I'm going to open the box in a second and take it out, but you'll notice that it is a box. It's a proper box, it's wooden, it's not plastic, so that indicates that the instrument has a certain age. Oops, so let's see what we've got. Here we are, and it is in fact a Boosey and Hawkes Edgeware clarinet, so it's a wooden clarinet of some age. And we've identified the age by looking at the serial number, which is found at the top of the upper joint. Right here, you can't really see it very well, but it is there. And that is mirrored by the same number at the top of the lower joint, which is there. So it's the same number, which is great. And that means that we've identified this instrument as having been produced around 1955-56. So it's what we might call a vintage instrument. Fortunately, the two serial numbers match up, which is great, so it's original. Sometimes with older instruments, a problem can occur in one joint, like a crack, and the player might think, oh, I'll just find another upper joint and whack it on. Which is not ideal because the instrument is made, as a whole, as a piece, and you really don't, you prefer not to have that. So I'll assemble it in a second. It's coming, as you can see here, with a mouthpiece, and I've already had a go on the instrument, and I got quite a lot of squeaks. So I tested my own mouthpiece, which I'm actually going to put on in a moment, and compared it, and what I found was that the mouthpiece that it comes with, the cork looks quite good, but when you actually have it in the barrel, there's a lot of play at the top. So I think the cork is probably too narrow in dimension at the top, causing leaks and therefore the squeaks. So I shan't be putting that one on, but of course any player would use their own preferred mouthpiece anyway.
Can you get a mouthpiece for it?
Oh yes, oh absolutely. It's a standard spec instrument. There are lots of very nice mouthpieces that you can buy and you can find to whack onto the barrel. That's fine. But while I'm mentioning the corks, they're actually in pretty good condition. And as far as we know, the instrument has not been played very much, and that would account for it. It doesn't look as if the corks have been, the instrument has been recorked, which is quite possible. Certainly not on that joint. On this one, I doubt it. They do look as if they're the original corks. So all in all, the instrument hasn't been tampered with, or really it hasn't been, it's had no major overhaul. You can see that the keys, you might say, are a little bit dull. They're standard nickel, but you can get a polish and polish it up and it would look really great, I think. So that's a few words about that, and the springs and so on, they're in pretty good nick as well. As you can see here with the lower joint, that's fine, that's absolutely fine, sorry. There is a slight mark, I do remember, at the top of the upper joint there, but I think it's a slight scuffing.
It's not a crack, is it?
It's definitely not a crack, and you can look through the inside in the bore, and you can see there's absolutely no crack whatsoever, and the bore looks in very good condition. So let's put it together. There we have the two lower parts, the bell and the lower joint. I will put on the upper joint like this. Get that into a nice position there, and you'll notice that when I assemble the instrument, I'll always be trying to hold it at the place where I find the fewest keys. That's because if you grab it here or grab it there, you may stress the keys, and that may bend them a little bit, which is really not a very good idea.
Have you seen any evidence of that?
No, I can't see any stress, I can't see any distortion of these keys at all. So generally speaking, they're in pretty good condition.
Can you tighten keys?
You certainly can. Let's just put the barrel on. Yes, you can. A good example might be here. these two posts here, you can see they've got little screws in them. You'll find those throughout the instrument in the keywork. You can buy a tiny screwdriver to just tighten them up, not too much, but make sure they're tight and they're nice and tight. They could be loose, and that's the simple first step of maintenance. If you don't know much about a clarinet, that's something you can do quite safely. The pads are in quite good condition, I would say. You can see that if you look at the underneath of that pad, that's typical. They're in quite good condition as well. Probably the pad right at the top here, this one, that's not quite as good condition, but it's still fine. And those pads at the very top, as any clarinet player will know, are the ones that take a lot of stick in terms of moisture going through the top part of the instrument as you blow. That's where it tends to collect in these areas in the upper joint. Okay, so I've got my stand here, which I often call the lunar module, and I'm just going to put on my own mouthpiece. So I've got a nice Selmer mouthpiece, which is really lovely to play on. So having assembled it like that, we've now got the instrument, and you'll notice one or two things straight away. And one of the things is that the barrel at the bottom here has nice gold lettering and looks really lovely. But when we go to the top, the lettering is very faded at the top here, at the top of the upper joint and the barrel. And the reason for that typically is the way people assemble and disassemble the instrument. So if you're going to take off the barrel, you're going to grab it like that, because there are no keys there. So your fingers are going on there, and you take it off always in the same direction, clockwise direction. And that's why more wear occurs at the top there. Whereas at the bottom, you can hold this, the bell, like this, in such a way that you won't actually touch the lettering there. So that accounts for the difference of wear between the two. Okay. So, having talked about that for a little while, let's see what it sounds like.